Welcome, Juventini, to the All JuveCast. I'm your host, Alberto, and we are going to be recapping Juventus's away match versus Genoa. And I have my friend Abdul joining me. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Thank God for the win. Yeah. What about
Absolutely,
you?
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. It was much needed as we chase the leaders. But yeah, we're gonna recap it. We're gonna break it down, and we're gonna get to quite a few topics. We're going to try our best to touch on all of them. So yeah, let's kick it off with the lineups in this one. So lineups, we had Chesney in goal. Um, there was reports leading up to this that we were going to get more of a base 3-5-2 like we saw against Barcelona. Even though Ramsey was in the lineup, he played it traditional as a three-man midfield and started from the same level, which was great. And there's been a lot of Juventini shouting for the three-man midfield for quite some time. So I was excited to see this lineup. We had Cuadrado, De Ligt, Bonucci, Sandro, Chiesa, with Bentancur, McKennie, Rabiot in the middle, Dybala, Ronaldo up top. The big question mark was going to be, is it going to be Dybala or is it going to be Morata starting? I said I was fine either way, but I think based on Dybala's form, how it's been, he should be on a short leash. But other than that, I was really fine with this lineup. I like seeing the three-man midfield. And yeah, I was looking forward to seeing the attitude, how we were going to approach this match against an opponent that we all expected to park the bus after that match against Barcelona. So, Abdul, what were your thoughts on the lineup? What were you expecting? How did you feel about what you saw?
First of all, when it comes to the lineup, I'm still confused whether it's going to be a three-man defense or it's a traditional 4-4-2, according to the graphics we get on Twitter and social media. So basically, it looked like a 4-4-2, but Sandro was so back in defense and not going up to attack, and that part was left more for Chiesa. So I saw Sandro taking Danilo's role, which was a false defender, if I may say. He was just sitting back and not going forward as much as we used to see him. But other than that, I think this is a really good formation to base off of our season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, no, Sandro essentially played the left center back, is what he did, and Chiesa was playing wing back as Cuadrado was playing wing back. Defensively, it shifts to a 4-4-2, but offensively, it takes the shape of a 3-5-2, a more traditional way of doing it. But the biggest thing for me was getting three midfielders in there and actually going about it that way. I think it's been a little too much tinkering, especially with outsides. My concern was when you see the graphics, if it's going to be 4-4-2, I sure as hell didn't want McKennie out on the wing again like he played that one match, because he's just out of place there. So the way it played out with Cuadrado and Chiesa closing out the outsides and keeping those three middle players in the middle, I liked it. I think we need to continue that way. It gives us stability. But again, this one shines a light on something that's missing in the lineup, but we'll get to that later on. Let's get to the match. We're a minute in, and I think that Rabiot has just put us 1-0 up, only to see that he chickened out and hit his hand, and yeah, no goal. So it's a tough one. Thinks the keeper's kind of okay, but come on, man, you got to go for that. Go a little more. You're making 7.5 mil. Let's go. Get in there. But
Yeah.
anyways, promising start. I said, okay, let's go. We continue on in 9th minute. McKennie's causing a little bit of havoc in the area. He has his header stopped as Perrin is able to stop that. 17th minute, Bentancur with a rip that just goes wide. And, it's early on. We're within the first 20 minutes. We're controlling possession, but again, we're struggling, and Genoa is parked. They're completely parked. There's not a lot of space. It's so congested in the middle and the central area. So we're just being closed out to having to settle for playing up the flanks and seeing what we can make happen. So that part always gets frustrating for Juventini to watch, but we were working it fairly decent. 21st minute, there's a nice give and go between Sandro and Chiesa. We're getting the ball in good areas. It's just that last ball isn't always there. It's not always the right options, and the crosses weren't where they needed to be. 23rd minute, again, McKennie does some good work to get into the top of the area on the right side, but his attempt goes wide of goal. Really, we go through this half. I mean, 45th minute, we stopped the half with a shot from Dybala that it's a decent shot, but way too close to Perrine. Perrine was reading it, and we close out the half that way. And honestly, at half, I thought it is what it is. It's us going against a team that's parked. We dominated possession, but we're just having a tough time trying to find that breakthrough. And it's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I said this game would be a grind, but I liked the fact that we weren't allowing counters. We were stable. Genoa really couldn't breathe. So I liked that aspect of it, and I couldn't help but feel the goal was going to come eventually. Abdul, at halftime, what were your thoughts at halftime?
My thoughts were we were pressuring the Genoa defense, so I was expecting a goal any minute. Except if I were in Pirlo's place, I was thinking of Morata. We really need a focal point in the box because Cristiano and Dybala, as everyone knows, play better when there's a focal point, like a big guy in the box. And I really loved seeing Morata come in and Rabiot subbed out because that's a very brave decision by the manager, even though it's a bit late, I would say, but it's better late than never. And
Well, it's interesting you say that, Abdul, because I was going to ask you. There was a lot of shouts by Juventini to get Rabiot out at halftime, especially he was on a yellow as well, and he was actually struggling. He wasn't having the strongest of match. Would you have pulled the trigger and moved Rabiot at halftime? Were you thinking that at halftime?
I was thinking Rabiot needs to leave immediately, and I was hoping to see Morata. I wasn't expecting Morata to come in. I was expecting maybe Artur or Ramsey, just to hold the balance and have a bright spark in the middle.
Yeah, there was a lot of shouts for Artur for the creativity, just because we were not generating enough chances for all the possession that we were commanding. But honestly, Rabiot was just, he was off. He was definitely off. You could see it. Wasn't his best, but Bentancur was picking up the slack for Rabiot. I thought Bentancur had a very, very strong opening half, and seeing if he could carry it on through the half. At halftime, I wasn't really too concerned about changes right at halftime based on, again, what I was seeing. I still saw us controlling it. Genoa wasn't getting a sniff of anything. We pretty much played that whole half in their end. I just thought eventually Genoa would break just from being fatigued, really, because it's easy to play on the front foot. So Juve is not burning a lot of gas, and we're, as long as we can move the ball decent and keep Genoa working. I thought, man, these guys are going to get tired. They're going to break at some point. And then let's go into halftime. We don't get any substitutes. There's no changes. 46th minute, Cristiano Ronaldo with a rip that just goes wide. Typically he'll hit the target from there, but he wasn't able to force a save. And then we didn't have to wait too much longer. 57th minute. And something a lot of us have been waiting for quite some time. But we're working the ball around. Again, it's complete control by Juve. The ball gets to the back. De Ligt is able to spot McKennie, who attacks a bit of space, forces a defender to go on to McKennie. He does a great flick on this aerial ball by De Ligt right into Dybala's path, who plays off of him. Dybala charges into the box, takes his man on, and goes short side fooling Perin, and we are 1-0 up, and you could feel the relief off of Dybala. You could watch it in the celebration. It was fantastic to see the subs running out, embracing him. He had an embrace with Pirlo, and that's just something we need. We're going to need this guy. There are no options outside of Morata, CR, and Dybala, in my opinion. Those other guys, when we talk about Kulusevski, Chiesa, these guys are wingers. Bernardeschi, they're not going to be that upfront guy. We need Dybala for this campaign. This was a big, big goal, and it was beautiful to see that sense of relief, and it was beautiful to see him embracing all the players and the team and that sense of belief. And you could see a team united, and I really, really liked that moment. Your thoughts on that moment, Abdul?
I was extremely relieved, as you just said. Not just Dybala, I think everyone on the team and everyone watching watching the game was extremely happy. Not only is this a goal to help us with the 3 points, but it's going to help the player with his confidence and help him. It's going to help him get back to the starting 11 and give Pirlo more of a headache when it comes to selection. So I'm really glad that Pirlo made this decision to have Morata come in and have all three of them play at the same time. And it's proven time and time again that Dybala is much better when he's closer to the box.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of I think I just don't think it's a coincidence when you get a 3-man midfield that all of a sudden he gets more opportunity up in that area, right? It all has to work together. So we carry on. We didn't have a 58th minute, literally a minute later, I think we're up 2-0. Chiesa with a great finish, but from the press and the challenge on the defender, Cristiano was actually offside as he gained possession before springing Chiesa through. And I think Chiesa was also offside after he had got sprung through. So I think it was getting called back no matter what. But again, we're keeping the pressure on. Things are going well. Hold on a second. 60th minute on the hour. Okay, here we go. We get a little bit of possession from Genoa. They're forced to open up as they're down 1-0. They have the ball down on the left flank, and they work the ball back to Pellegrini. McKennie had closed off the space. Should Cuadrado had been taken 1v1, he went there. When the ball moved back to Pellegrini, he didn't get back to force enough pressure. He gave Pellegrini enough time to put in a really great cross. And if you watch the back post on this goal, this is what's infuriating for Juventini, because you have Sandro, who knows Storaro is on his back, but there's also their forward right in front of him. So Sandro is literally sandwiched between these two players. Yeah. Bonucci needs to take the guy directly to his left shoulder so that Sandro can cover Storaro. So Bonucci doesn't. He's literally just covering the space a couple feet ahead of that striker. So Sandro has to commit. And, of course, they don't make contact with the ball. And, of course, of all players, Storaro frickin' scores against Juve, and we're equalized 1-1. And this is frustrating. Very, very frustrating goal to allow. And, again, it's just switching off from a game you've completely dominated and controlled. And it's that simple. And it's these lapses that are Bonucci's in the middle. And you could see Sandro as soon as the goal goes in. Look at Bonucci, and I'm thinking, did you communicate that to him, Sandro? And where is Szczesny in all of this? Where's his command in the area to either go and punch that thing or call out to his defenders where they need to be or whatnot? It's a frustrating goal to see, and it just pissed me off. But here we are again with a former Juve player doing what they do best, which is scoring against Juve. We're 1-1. At this time, you have a lot of Juventini calling for substitutes. What was your frame of mind as the game gets equalized at the hour mark, Abdul?
Uh, After scoring initially, I wasn't getting ready to celebrate a win because I got used to the team losing concentration after scoring. Not only that, but they seem to concede in the worst times possible. So my frame of mind was you had to switch things up. You had to have one of those creative midfielders come on, or just allow the players to attack freely. And thankfully, this happened because from the way the team was playing, I knew there was a goal coming. And luckily, actually, we were over dependent on Cuadrado's crossing like throughout the game, and I was expecting a header from either McKennie or Morata. So I think he came good and caused us
Yeah,
caused
well,
us
we'll
penalties.
get to that for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, immediately after, were you calling for subs immediately after that goal?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you wanted to see some changes. You wanted Morata in there, whatnot. Okay, fair enough. I mean, again, that was one lapse defensively. Um, did I feel this game needed to change? I still only felt there was the one thing missing that is constant. You touched on it, and it's Morata. This system needs a 9. It needs a focal point up at the top. Would I have pulled the trigger immediately after the goal? Yeah, I probably would have. But I think this is a tough one. And I think the only reason why, and I think Pirlo probably thinks about it the same way as he sees it, I still say he's seeing things from a player's perspective, not fully as a manager yet. But Dybala for me was having a pretty good game, in my opinion. The second half, he looked much, much better and he was making himself involved a lot. So if you were going to pull Morata, I think when you're in a 1-1 match, CR7 is a lock because he's a game breaker. So, like you just don't expect him to come off, and I wouldn't have changed him, even if I thought for the most part CR7 didn't look himself. I still would have left him. I would have felt it would have been a bit too harsh to take Dybala out, considering his current struggles and the fact that he was actually getting himself very involved and doing well, in my opinion. So the problem I would have had is, who do you move to get Morata in, or are you better off bringing in a midfielder? It was a tough one. It was a tough call at that point in the match, but I wanted to see our reaction. We just went equalized on the hour. There's still a half hour to play. How do we react? 3 minutes later, we do very well. And again, Paulo Dybala's in there. He sets a ball up for Cuadrado, but unfortunately for Cuadrado, he lost his footing at the most crucial time, so he wasn't able to get anything on that shot. 65th minute, goal gets called back for offside, though. Okay. And this one was an interesting one. There was a lot of confusion on it, whatnot. But if you look at it, it's tough. You had people that were confused on this call because they saw the position of Ronaldo and thought, well, why? Like if he's beyond Dybala, why is he offside? It's actually the line of the ball, and it's chintzy, man. It's really chintzy. We're talking about the toes. We're literally talking about Dybala's toe being offside. The play moves forward. I believe it was McKennie who headed it on to Ronaldo. Okay, so Dybala is offside during that period of time. Once the ball's headed from McKennie to Ronaldo, Ronaldo then carries it. And as soon as he is beyond all those Genoa defenders, all Dybala needs to do is get back level or beyond the ball. He just doesn't do it by a toe. by a toe, literally. If his foot, if he was pigeon-toed, it would have been a goal because his foot would have been inside the line. Like, that's how close we're talking, and it's so chintzy and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me, and the reason I got pissed off about it was because it's like I've seen goals that have stood for lines that are thrown like they're beyond where they should be and all sorts of things. And we've had these calls called back by literally like centimeters. Okay. And my issue is, if you're going to dial the game down to literally like centimeters, I think you need to put something into the effect of where is the advantage. Because for Dybala there, that the position he's in, the entire defense has allowed him to be there, and Ronaldo has gone behind the entire defense. Is that toe advantageous? It changes nothing on that play. Literally nothing. And it's no different than these goals where you get an offside where they're calling interference, or like you're in the sight of the keeper and stuff like that. If a keeper is still diving for the ball, which we saw recently too, Sirigu was diving for that ball, they called the defender trying to get in there to block and whatnot. These are pretty questionable, man. And it's really frustrating to see these not count by centimeters. Very, very harsh. I just think they need to make things a bit more clear, maybe take a look, because honestly, oh man, if you're going to break it down to that close, it's so hard to time it at full speed as a forward, as a player. And we saw Morata get caught how many times by inches, not even. You saw Ronaldo get one called back by his Adam's apple one year. It's like, if you're going to break it down that tight, it's pretty hard, because they're trying to play this game, do this at full speed, time runs at full speed. And if you're going to measure it to that extent, it's chintzy, that's all. But by rule, his toe was over. Offside. Shitty deal, right? Oh, man. 67th minute, and Abdul's probably a super happy guy because Morata comes on and Rabiot goes off. So now it's the big thing, Abdul. Morata, CR7, and Dybala. And we'll see what happens. 71st minute, Ronaldo gets stopped from Perin after a great ball by Chiesa. I'm actually shocked that this header didn't go in. I thought it was automatic. The second the ball left Chiesa's foot, I thought, that's it. CR7's going to head this home, and we're off to the races. But Perin was able to just be in the right spot. 75th minute, Cuadrado. Now, this was funny, because as the play was building up, I was like, okay, come on, let's go. And Cuadrado stopped everything. And I was like, oh no, like, let's go, keep it going. But he beat his man. And at the right time, he put his body in front of that ball, and he took that challenge, and he drew the PK and did a fantastic job. CR7 steps up. Is there ever really a doubt, Abdul? Mr. Automatic, 2-1. Okay, big time work by Cuadrado. In the 83rd minute, we get Kulishevsky in for Dybala, and then Bernardeschi in for Chiesa. And then 4 minutes later, we put some pressure in from Kulishevsky and Morata. Morata draws another PK, this one on challenge. CR7 steps up, and now we can relax. And we see this one out, and the 90th minute, Dragusin makes his Serie A debut for De Ligt, coming in for the last extra time. All I could say for this one is job done. A very workmanlike performance, but I liked the attitude. I liked the intent. The only nitpicking thing is the same as all of us. I feel this team should be generating more opportunities a little more often if we're gonna possess the ball that much. What did you think? You finally saw CR7, Morata, Dybala. We finished off getting a couple PKs. Were you happy that you're the second half, or do you still have questions about this club? What do you think, Abdul?
First of all, I'm really happy about the win. It's a hard-fought win, and these are the wins we got used to. And it's not easy winning against Genoa at the Luigi Ferraris. Also, it's these bottom of the table teams. I think what I took out of this game was having Rabiot, Bentancur, and McKennie was kind of redundant for me. So the match-changing move was having Morata enter the game and removing someone who wasn't playing his best, Rabiot. And although Morata, Dybala, and Cristiano played for 15, 20 minutes together, they looked good, but I'm still having doubts on how to find the best game or the best circumstances to have them all fit in with the perfect midfield behind them. Because for me, McKennie has to play. Bentancur, he's not as we witnessed last season, but he did the dirty work. He did so many tackles and tracked back. I just think either Ramsey or Artur should be in the mix with these two, because it's a combination of three different types of players, and every one of them can bring in something different. Rabiot and Bentancur in together, they're kind of too similar, and especially when they're playing by themselves, they get stretched and they get exposed far too often against the opposition. So next game, maybe not against Atalanta, but we can try Artur and Ramsey's role, just a bit more advanced, so he can make those pinpoint passes to the attackers, which they're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
They've been getting way too many crosses from Chiesa and Cuadrado. I think we need to work on something in the midfield. We need to have a focal point who can build up play and build up momentum from the midfield. Even McKennie was really important going forward. I was really impressed with him, with all of the assists and headers.
That's what it is. That's exactly why many of us have been shouting for three main midfielders and not playing a trequartista in Ramsey. And Ramsey played against Barca, but he didn't play the way he usually does, which is very high up the pitch, almost level with the forwards, and creating a lot of space for him to get back defensively. Against Barca, he actually did the same thing that happened today, which I actually like, and I agree. And I don't see it as big of an issue on who plays in the middle as long as we have the three stable guys. I know people say they need a little more creativity that's why they want to see Ramsey in there or Artur, but to be honest, I would challenge Artur and his creativity, because I still don't see a lot of success in forward ball movement from him. I just see a good tempo control and very, very solid in possession, but I still challenge the whole creativeness of Artur, and I'm still waiting for that part to really shine through. Do I think it will? Eventually, but I don't think it's a big shout to make right now. But possession-wise, the guy's great, and if he controls the tempo, we've only seen one match where he was really money, like dictating things. Do I think he needs to be in there, though, as a starter? He would be in my starting 11 for sure. I think McKennie, he would be in my starting 11 for sure. And Rabiot, yeah, this one was a bad one for him. Bentancur was much better out of the two today, but we're going to definitely get into this midfield question. But real quick, before we get into that, man of the match. I want to know who your man of the match was, Abdul.
I like most of the players' performance, to be honest, but I'm gonna pick McKennie for this one.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. I said the same thing. I mean, I gave it to. It's a close one for me between like Dybala, Chiesa, or McKennie. Even Ronaldo, two clutch PKs, but I just gave it to Dybala because it was the first goal, it was open play, and in the second half, I think the amount of work that he did to make himself a viable option, constantly all the time. I just gave him the edge, a slight edge, but they were all, you could pick anybody out of Chiesa, Bentancur, McKennie, and CR, in my personal opinion. They were all really, really good. My lowest rating went to Rabiot in this particular match. I thought he was well off the mark. But yeah. Now let's get into it. We kind of started, but Chris writes in, besides McKennie in the midfield hasn't been consistent. How do we move forward midweek and into next matches before Christmas? Look, Pirlo's clearly going to do a lot of rotating. It's just the way it's going to be. I think honestly, we're still going to get a lot of midfield. The inconsistency from the midfield, I think there's a lot of contributing factors when you look at it. You have, a new system, number one. So you've got guys that joined the team last season in Rabiot and Ramsey. Ramsey's kind of been shifted around. Rabiot's been gaining traction, but you've got new guys. Then you've got new guys from this season, McKennie, Arthur. So you throw in an adjustment period and you throw in an experimental period with Pirlo, trying to figure out how he wants to run them, where he wants to play them and everything. So, and then you throw in the fact that Pirlo is changing it match to match, and there's not a real consistent 11. I think these are all things. So I'm not really terribly concerned with the actual personnel at this moment because, like I said just a couple minutes ago, I don't see this creative force out of any of the guys we have. I think they all have their, traits and abilities. But I don't think that's going to change drastically between the guys we have. You can maybe make an argument for Ramsey being the most creative. It'd probably be between he and Arthur. And I think it's okay if we want to mix that up and say, hey, when Ramsey can be out and then you can have one of Bentancur and Rabiot and then put McKennie out there, right? Or Arthur, Ramsey or Rabiot, but then you're probably going to have Bentancur out there too. So you're going to have a mix in there. It's probably going to come up to Ramsey and Arthur as far as where the creativeness comes from it. But I think the biggest thing is, as long as there's three and they're stable across the middle, it allows Dybala to stay just a little bit more forward than what we were seeing before. This match, he was again just a bit more forward, a little bit able to play more off linkages. But Abdul, like your thoughts on where we go from the midfield here on out. We've got, a midweek match and whatnot. We are going to get into what we think the lineup should be, but just focus on the midfield right now and just speak to the midfield and what you see, what you think is best and why has there been, that inconsistency? What do you think?
I think it's obvious why it's been inconsistent. There's so many changes from last season, whether it's on a managerial scale or player-wise, and even thought-wise and how to play. So I think Pirlo is trying to figure out his best formation and trying to figure out his best players to adapt to his formations. And it took him a while to try out all the players. And I think with a few matches, he's players in midfield. For me, McKinney is obviously one of them. The other two, they're going to be interchangeable, I think, for a few games. But the other factors would be that some of the players aren't really adjusted to Italian football, such as McKennie, Artur, and some of the players were adjusting from last season, like Rabiot and Ramsey. Ramsey and Rabiot, on one hand, they're coming good now. If you can take out the fact that Ramsey is always injured, I think he's starting to adjust to Italian football. Rabiot also is doing the same thing. Bentancur is a guarantee for me because at least we know what we get when we play him. But from here on out, I think McKennie is going to get better because his style of football is very direct and it's very clear. His job is just to recover the ball. Anything plus is going to be a bonus to us. His work rate, his energy, he brings a new dimension to our midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah,
Artur, I think he's going to take a very long time. I think I've said this before, but I think he's the type of player who's so complex that he's going to take a while to adapt. And once he adapts and figures out how to play in calcio, and Pirlo figures out his best position, we're going to feel like he's going to be a new winter signing, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got some Barcelona fans that I speak to about him, and I just say the jury's still out on that one. I think, but time will tell.
Must be the same ones I spoke to.
Yeah. So Silky Wilkie, look at that name, comes in saying things are coming into focus. The team is gaining confidence and form. It's looking good. Jury is still out ultimately, but this was a damn good week. So yeah, on the positive side of things, this was a very, very good week. The Derby della Mola obviously could be the turning point of the season for Juve. We had the big match against Barca, and then with the big victory, and then we were able to get this one and put a little pressure on obviously Milan, who's leading Serie A, and Milan dropped some points in a draw that they had to battle for, and actually got the equalizer in the dying minutes of the match. So yeah, it was a good one. Very, very solid week. But not everybody was really on the positive side. Eric, who was my guest on Buonasera Bianconeri, he's still got some issues with Pirlo when it comes to the substitutions. So once they equalized, Eric thought it was imperative to get some subs into the match. Pirlo's timing seems to be off still. I also thought this was a match for two central midfielders because Genoa was crowding us. So I tend to agree with Eric as far as Pirlo's substitutions and the timing. There has been quite a lot of times where I feel there's a disconnect there in what the game's calling for and the timing, and sometimes it feels like it's very, very late. In this particular match, though, I didn't feel that way. I actually felt like the timing was okay. Because again, we controlled the play for almost the entirety of this match. It literally just came down to creation and just squeezing that bit more pressure in order to really put Genoa under. So I didn't feel terribly bad about the timing of his subs or anything. As far as this being a match for two central midfielders, I personally think I personally prefer the three-man midfield, especially in Pirlo's setup. It makes it a lot more natural moving from offense to defense. I think Genoa was crowding things as it was in the middle of the park. If you put two guys in there, it's a little bit easier for them to maybe gain possession back and be able to get a little possession or maybe counter, if anything. So I think having three in there, I was fine with. It just made it more stable. What I would have liked to see was a little more engagement from the backs, the left and right center backs like De Ligt or Sandro. Sandro did it a few times in the first half, and it worked really good, where he also increased some pressure and it forced Chiesa up further, and we were able to really put them under. If Danilo was on the right side, I'm confident we would have had the same between he and Quadrado, putting them really under on the right side. So I was actually okay with that. Abdul, what do you think about Eric's comments about the timing of the subs? And what do you think about this being a match for two central midfielders, a two-man pivot?
Well, from what I saw in the match, Genoa didn't really have any attempts at goal except for their goal. So the most dangerous attempts were counterattacks from Genoa. So having two center midfielders could have caused a lot of counterattacks for Genoa, which is not good for us, obviously. So I think Pirlo did the perfect sub when he took Morata in for Rabiot, because it's like two substitutions for me. He takes out one of the underperforming midfielders and then adds someone who's sorely missed in attack, and things look much better with two men in midfield. But I do agree with you that in general we need to have three midfielders, and then as the game wears off and the opponent is tired, we can have like an extra attacker instead of one of the midfielders or whatever we need, or one of the wingers to come in.
Absolutely,
It just
yeah.
depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. Yeah, and the midfield's going to be an ongoing saga, I think, and it looks like Pirlo's starting to lean towards this three-man middle, but we'll see. He's changed things so much.
Do you think that's a good
From
sign or a
match to
bad sign?
match, week to week, it's been crazy, and I know part of it has been injuries and getting guys back and whatnot, but he is changed a lot. And one of the questions that we had come in from Antonio is, I want to know why Pirlo never confirms the same starting 11 after a win, especially the type of win against Barcelona. I'm all for rotation, but the more tinkering, less continuity is built for the players. So this is a very, very interesting one, but as of late, I've spoken to how I feel Pirlo is very, very connected in terms of seeing things from a player's perspective. And I seriously think that plays into this as well. I think he's got a very strong roster, a lot of good players, and it might just be the player in him wanting to keep these guys satisfied when it comes to playing time and just trying to keep that locker room as happy as possible. This guy has zero experience. So to get a locker room like that, where, you can come up with 1.5 starting 11 squads, right? Like almost two. It's a tough thing for any manager, but I think Pirlo, the only reason I could see is him seeing it from a player's perspective and try to get everybody involved and keep everybody happy and in tune with the project and feeling a part of it, right? That's the only thing I can think of. Abdul, your comments on Antonio's question?
I was going to say this is one of the most common comments about Pirlo, is he always likes to change things. And I guess it goes back to him being a rookie and him trying to figure out what the best formation and the best lineup is. But I do tend to agree with you that he might be trying things out, and at the same time, he wants to keep all the players happy and keep the morale high. So when it comes to mid-season, he doesn't have any problems in the locker room, or something negative happens where he loses the locker room, and this might turn his campaign into um God forbid, Ferrara or something.
Yeah. God forbid is right. Jesus. Yeah, I
I
think
just to point out, I remember Ciro Ferrara. He went through a similar problem. He had Del Piero, Diego, Giovinco, and Camoranesi, and Del Piero was coming back from injury, and I think he wanted to make the captain happy, and the best performers were Giovinco and Camoranesi, and Diego was a much anticipated player and a fan favorite for some reason, and he had to figure out which players to play. So he ended up with Del Piero on the left wing. They didn't play so well. They lost because of this decision, and that's where the shit hit the fan at that point.
yeah, I mean, it's Jesus Christ, I didn't think we'd start recollecting on Chiro Ferrara days, but you're right.
Sorry.
I mean, it's one of those things like every manager has their own method, their own beliefs and whatnot, but we have to remember Pirlo is like newly appointed in coaching and he doesn't have a lot of experience. So again, the one thing that shines through, especially in a moment like Dybala scoring in this one, and you see the embrace there, we are united. That's one solid positive is this team is united and they're all for one for all. And Pirlo has all those players backing him. We had a great interview with Dybala post match. And actually, all their comments were pretty solid when we get into the post match comments. Like Pirlo spoke well about how this match was strictly about attitude. Following up Barcelona, he didn't want to let anything slip. He wanted to control the game, which they did. Again, he did speak to the opportunities. He was upset at how they conceded and the goal conceded, but he loved the reaction. And I loved the reaction because before this match, a lot of what we were seeing when we conceded was a lot of heads down, a lot of sulking, and not that belief. Like it honestly made me feel like I don't think we're going to get a goal. But in this one, I didn't have that feeling. I thought because of the way they played up until that point, and just I know that there wasn't a lot of chances created, so to speak, but we dominated possession, and I've kept feeling like it's only a matter of time before some of these start going in for us, and you get a couple offsides and whatnot. Like I saw it coming, so I was okay with it. But Pirlo spoke to Dybala having a good game, Bentancur having a great game, and just continuing to grow. But the mentality was always going to be a challenge for him because honestly, this switch off after conceding and feeling like a soft, fragile team has been around since Allegri's final tenure. This didn't just creep up all of a sudden. We've been a team that belief, that swagger hasn't really been around us. And does it feel to you like it's starting to come back?
It does, yeah, but it's obviously going to take some time to build back a really good team because since Allegri, the team was crying for a revolution. We needed to change so many players. It wasn't really just Allegri's fault. It was more of a cycle that ended, and the management, I don't know if they failed to realize this or they hadn't done it in time, but a change had to happen at that point. And then fast forward to Pirlo, and still we do lack some players, especially in midfield, in my opinion.
Hmm.
because the most changes we're having are usually in midfield. Ask anyone about midfield, and we don't really have players in mind who should be playing week in, week out. It's usually whoever is in form or ready. Like we really need to have a solid midfield, just like the one in 2015, and maybe get some of the injured players back in the game, like Demiral and maybe a sub striker. And then I think we can play much better than what we're seeing right now. But what matters to me the most is just grinding out these wins, because no one's going to remember these games. What matters is the victory at the end.
There you go, man. Nice little touch there, Abdul. And then we got
Yeah.
Ronaldo, of course, speaking, and Ronaldo making his 100th Juve appearance. He's at ridiculous numbers: 79 goals, 19 assists. Like that's crazy. That's
That's ping
absolutely
pong
crazy.
scores.
But he was speaking post match, and he was saying, Juventus's objective is the same. It's league title and it's Champions League year in, year out. And he's like, we have a belief as a team that we will be able to win something important this season. So, yeah, it's good. I mean, I expect nothing less from Ronaldo every time he talks. He's got an elite killer serial winner mentality. And you just want that to trickle down into everybody. But yeah, I think between Pirlo, Ronaldo, like I think this this could be something really good. I've been saying as of late, if we start to get things right and we start to click, I really, really do like the possibilities of how strong this club could be based on some of the traits that our players possess and what we have, and Pirlo has more options than Sarri did last season, and Allegri in his final tenure, in my personal opinion. He's got a little bit more wiggle room, and part of it is the setup in which Pirlo plays. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of does work for the guys we do have. And then, of course, last but not least, the post-match comments that came in from Dybala in his interview, how he spoke that he loves Juve, he doesn't want to leave. He also did say his agent was in Turin for a few weeks and nobody had contacted him. And he said that there's a lot of lies being spoken, basically, when it comes to the contract scenario. So this 15 million salary thing and whatnot, I mean, it's always been speculation and whatnot. But it is a little bit disturbing, and that's probably what's bothering him. I don't know, is the fact that his agent was there and nobody reached out, which to me tells me that the club isn't interested in extending Paulo Dybala, and it's probably how he feels, and it it could be the form. But I mean, if your agent's there and you guys were starting to talk, and like there's been reports numerous times, and even Juve has said, yeah, we're going to talk about the contracts, or we're going to talk about contracts. Well, he was there for 2 weeks and nobody reached out. Pretty bad sign, I would have to say. Abdul, what do you think?
I can't really disagree with you on that, but if this is something that's affecting his play, then they need to find a resolution, whether it's him staying or him leaving. I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to happen in January, because I got used to January being like uh, I don't know, just fill the gap kind of transfer window, and the summer being the big money transfer windows. So I think this would be really good if they find a resolution, so they can just get the player to focus on his game and help the club achieve its 10th Scudetto, and also focus on the Champions League, because you never know what could happen if all the players were really concentrated on their
Yeah.
game.
I gotta agree with you with no matter what the issue is, but if it is contract related, the club has to figure it out. Because as I said earlier, we're gonna need Paulo. Uh, we have no backup wings and what, but Dybala, Morata, and CR7, should one of them go down, I'm actually concerned, to be honest. And let's get right into it. This is a question a lot of Juventini are asking, and CR7, Morata, and Dybala, can it work? In my personal opinion, in Pirlo's setup, I can't see it working. And I don't feel that Pirlo is going to change to any other formation. I do not see it working other than a final 15, 20 minutes of a match where you're chasing something. I don't see it being a setup where we start the game, and then the only reason is the defensive stability and what you're going to get out of most likely Dybala playing in between the lines of those other guys. Because as we see, it's more crucial, I think, for our game to have three stable midfielders than it is to have, one of those guys in the hole. That's just me personally. But Abdul, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one because everybody's asking it.
It depends on the midfield behind them, but I wouldn't think that this is the perfect formation. But you can try this out in a Copa game, or like you said, 15, 20 minutes when we're leading two or three goals. And the midfield behind them are going to have to play a very, 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 very hard game. They're going to have to track back and attack and help out and do all the dirty work for them, because I don't expect any of those three to track back efficiently. Also, the wing backs or the full backs playing, they're not going to be pinned back and to defend like Alexandro or Danilo. I'm expecting two fullbacks who attack a lot, like Cuadrado. So at the moment, I don't see this working in a very serious game, but maybe in when we're winning or we're playing a Copa game, we can just try it out for fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a shot. Again, my question to the Juventini that want to see this, and I'd love to see the comments on the video or on Twitter, but how do you make this work in Pirlo's setup? Because, yeah, we can draw up all sorts of alternatives, 4-3-1-2, 4-3-3, to try and make it work. But I'm strictly speaking in Pirlo's setup. Really, you're going to have Morata always occupying one of those two forward positions. Same with CR7. That means Dybala would have to take one of those midfield roles. And that is where the issue I have with it becomes, because, again, now all of a sudden you're taking those two pivot midfields, and when Dybala does push or whatnot, and even wingbacks, that's where we get spread out. And that's where the counterattacks happen when we leave two-man pivots. The other thing is, you're taking one guy as opposed to two center mids that could be pressing if you kept everything the same without trying to get all those guys in and just leaving two forwards. Kind of like what we've got the last two games, which in my opinion has been really good. Everybody's got to remember, even like deadly clubs, even when you looked at those Galactico rosters, when teams park the bus and they're organized, and in Italy, they're the friggin' best at it, it's hard to break down. It's a nightmare to break down. We could have done better today too if our crossing, and our final ball was a bit better. It seemed like a lot of it, we were going low, on the carpet when we should have been going aerial and, trying to pick out some ridiculous passes rather than just get these crosses into the mixer and give our guys a chance. So it's all relative, but I think honestly, I can't see it working in Pirlo's setup. The other issue I have with it, if you put all three of them in and you want to start a match like that out, say it doesn't go your way, who are you subbing in into one of these forward roles? Then all of a sudden you've emptied your clip right out of the bat, rather than having a Morata that can come off the bench or a Dybala that can come off the bench. That's my other issue with firing all three from the get-go. There's been shouts for Chiesa to play as one of those guys too and whatnot, but I really like where Chiesa is on as one of those wing backs, and I would personally leave him right there. Kulishevsky is a guy without a position currently, and I don't know if I would trust him to be one of those forwards, to be honest. So I don't know, but this is an interesting one, and it's building a lot of steam. And today was the first time we saw it, and I want to know what the Juventini out there think. So get your comments in on Twitter. If you have me on WhatsApp, hit me on WhatsApp or just drop it on the YouTube video here. But CR7 Morata Dybala, can it work? I want to hear this. The other thing, there was a shout today from Alcar7. Time to get Buffon in matches. Tech doesn't command his box and is not vocal enough. Look at the goal conceded. It's not the first time he concedes like that. Excuse me. Buffon was massive against Barca. Am I ready to give Tech less matches? I don't really know. Do I agree that he's not vocal enough? Yes. Do I think Buffon commands the area a bit better? Yes. Am I ready to go away from Tech as a starter? No, not for me. No, just absolutely. I love Buffon, but for me, I think Tech. What are we doing it for? Are we doing it just to gain a bit of more traction, have some more consistency at the back? Because at the end of the day, if you are going to go back to Tech, then why do it? In my personal opinion, Tech's the number one. Tech's the guy. If you have that personal issue with Tech in his game, he's got to pick it up, and you just got to call him out on him and get him to get in there. But I don't think we go away from Tech as starter. Abdul, your thoughts on this one?
To me, the goalkeeping position is interchangeable. All options are good for me, but I don't think it's fair to deny him a spot just based on that one mistake, even though he should have done better. Also, Alexandro should have done better. But Chesney usually looks so relaxed when he's playing, and he always gives me a mini heart attack whenever he passes the ball with the defenders. And I feel like he's a very trustworthy and underrated goalkeeper. So I'm good with both at any time in any game, and I trust both of them. But I would have him starting week in, week out. Buffon could, like, every once in a while, to give Tech a rest.
Yeah, it's a crazy shout. He's definitely not alone. Like, I'll say that. Alcarer7, this is not the first time I've heard for people saying get Buffon in there more and really criticizing Chesney on the command of the area and whatnot. The funny thing is that you see Chesney go through these moments, right? Like, he's steady as a rock. He's like this, and he's just cruising along, and then out of nowhere, it'll just be like, oh, weird, like just soft stuff or weak stuff happening. But ultimately, I'm not worried, and I agree with you. I think Chesney is highly underrated. Yeah, interesting to see what happens. Buffon, did it really surprise anybody against Barcelona? It didn't surprise me, that's for sure. Were you surprised with Buffon's performance there, Abdul?
No. Actually, when I saw Chesney before that game, I think it was against Torino. Class save. I was like, he needs to play. But on the other hand, I wanted Buffon to play because it's Buffon and it's against Barca, so he does deserve it. So seeing both keepers this season, I'm very confident with both of them against any opponent. That's the only position where we're like fully in control and have like really good options.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Rami writes in, Pirlo must start the same 11 to build chemistry. We look terrifyingly stale and not too creative. Without Morata, there is no reference point. This is something I've been talking about for a while, where Morata, not only Morata, but a number 9 that plays it truly is so critical. Keeps coming up, and it's blatant obvious in the matches when Morata is not in there. In January, do you think that's a must to add in another actual striker?
To me, yeah, it's a must because we're lacking numerically, not quality wise. We just need someone
Yeah.
to be on the bench and just play whenever we need. We need one of the players rested or someone suspended or God forbid injured or whatever. And I'm thinking like a lamppost kind of striker, like a big guy who can combine well with Ronaldo and Dybala.
Yep. I agree. Would you put that priority above a midfielder?
Numerically, yes, but the way our midfield is playing, we really need a midfield for creativity and to organize our somewhat chaotic midfield. So if I had to pick one, I'd pick the striker, but I wouldn't go break the bank for a striker. We just need someone like Giroud or Torres. What's his name? Fernando Llorente, or just someone for 6 months, in my opinion.
Back Llorente. Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna reunite everybody with Pirlo there.
Yeah, I think Pirlo loves having ex players on the
Yeah,
team.
I think. Yeah, that's a tough one. If it's going to be between somebody creative in the middle of the park or a number 9 backup, that's a tough one. If you're going to set a priority, I think it really becomes a question of the deal in that sense. Because if you can get a creative guy in the middle of the park and it's the right deal, yeah, I think it would just come down to the context and the details and everything. But it would be really hard to pass up on a backup number 9 because I think that's a glaring hole here. And should something happen, knock on wood, injury wise, especially to Morata, I see big problems for the Juve squad, to be honest. So yeah, that's a tough one, but an interesting question. And again, Juventini, you're listening, get your comments in. What do you put as a priority, a creative midfielder or another number 9? But yeah, Rami, great stuff in there. And last, certainly not least, Arun writes in, what should the lineup be against Atalanta? Abdul, I'm going to let you take this one, and I want to hear your lineup, how you would set us out against Atalanta.
I'll pick a lineup, but I know for sure Pirlo's not going to go with the same lineup. So I would go with the same exact lineup against Genoa, except have Rabiot out and have Artur in his place as a start. I'll give Dybala another chance because to me he looked like he was doing everything he can, and he capped it off with a wonderful goal. Even though Morata is really important, but I don't want to change way too many things in the formation and then go back to square one where we're not we're doing the same mistake as Pirlo, in our opinion. So I'd go with the same exact formation and just have Artur in place of Rabiot.
Yeah. So I think I would go a little more with what we saw against Barca. I think I'd go Szczesny in goal. I go Delict on the left side center back with Bonucci in the center with Danilo on the right side. Quadrado as your right wing back, Sandro as your left wing back. And then, across the middle, I would have Artur, Bentancur, and McKennie with Morata and Ronaldo up top. That's how I would play it against Atalanta. I'd go at them hard. They have been leaking goals. Yeah, I would. I'd go at them. Their defense has been suspect for most of the season. I know they got a clean sheet, I believe, today, but they have been leaking some goals. Their offense is pretty potent, but there's some issues there with Atalanta involving Gomez as well and Gasparini, and some interesting stories coming out of there. Hard to know what's truth and what's not, but there's a little bit of problems brewing there. So let's take advantage and let's capitalize. Honestly, I like your lineup. I like my lineup. I think we definitely have enough to get the job done. They just got to come out with the same intent, drive, and focus. The biggest thing is the focus. So, yeah. And, of course, tomorrow is the draw for the Champions League. We know the potential opponents that Juve could be facing. All right. And I want to get basically from you who you want us to get. Who do you think we're going to end up with? So, of course, the list is Porto, Atletico, Sevilla, Leipzig, and Mönchengladbach.
I'll go with Porto.
So you think we're going to draw Porto?
No.
That's who you want.
Go with Porto. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think will actually hit?
Borussia Mönchengladbach. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, I want Porto or Mönchengladbach. I think we will actually get Mönchengladbach, and then we will go from there. But yes, the draw is tomorrow, Juventini. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The knockouts will start, and then it gets that's where the fun begins. And we start this, the knockout stages, and see what kind of damage we can do. Abdul, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, my friend.
Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. You're constantly putting in great questions, comments in for the pod too. It's much appreciated. And I love the support, man. So thank you very, very much. This was an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we got to recap a victory. That's always nice, and not a frustrating match or whatnot. This one was good 3-1 win. It was a little frustrating maybe in the first half chance-wise, but it was good to see them win. It's good to see Ronaldo in his 100th appearance get some goals. It was great to see Dybala score, the embrace, all the positive things he said in the interview afterwards as far as his love for Juventus. I can't let you go, though, without putting you on the spot, because everybody's talking about it. Pogba, Dybala, gun to your head, Abdul. Do you make the swap in January, hypothetically?
Okay, so on Twitter, I think I said something along the lines of I would, but I forgot to write the word consider. But I could do it. Yeah, I could do it in the summer. I don't mind. But if it's gun to my head in January, then no.
No, not in January.
No, it's too big of a change for me during like mid-season, and I don't want to make big changes with Pirlo. I don't know what to expect from Pirlo getting this type of change mid-season. So I'm really comfortable with what we have right now, and he's getting used to Dybala, and Dybala is finally coming good.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, just looking at it from a change aspect, especially mid-season and whatnot. So, yeah, that's cool, man. Thank you again, Abdul. Thank you again to all the Juventini for tuning in. Keep an eye out for Buonasera Bianconeri. It's my new series, just doing a nightly recap of news and discussions that are taking part on social media surrounding Juve. And any questions and comments that don't make the podcast, take a look out for the Buonasera Bianconeri episodes, because they'll probably make it there. Thanks again, everybody. As always, I'll come back at you for those episodes and post-match versus Atalanta midweek. Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.
Ciao.